Hey, deep divers. Ever notice how, when you're checking the news during a natural disaster, it can sometimes make you feel more freaked out than actually prepared?
Oh, absolutely.
Like you're glued to the screen, but not really getting the info you need to actually do something.
Right. It's all about how the information's presented, isn't it?
Exactly. And that's what we're diving into today. We're looking back at the 2011 Queensland Cyclones in Australia, specifically Cyclone Yasi, and how two big newspapers handled all that news coverage.
Fascinating case study.
We've actually got some academic research analyzing all their articles. So with expert speakers' help, we're going to unpack what those articles tell us about communicating effectively during a crisis. When it really, really matters to get it right.
Because the right information can actually be empowering in those moments.
Totally. Okay, so to set the stage a bit, expert speaker, could you take us back to 2011? What exactly was going on in Queensland?
Okay, so imagine this. Queensland was dealing with not just one, but two major cyclones, one right after the other.
Oh, wow.
Cyclone Anthony hit first, and then came Yasi, which, by the way, was one of the most powerful cyclones in Australia's recorded history. So you can just picture the tension, the uncertainty, as everyone's bracing for impact.
Talk about a double whammy. No wonder everyone was on edge. And that's where the newspapers come in, right? To give people those crucial updates.
Exactly, but there's a real art to that, right? You've got to strike a balance. Convey the seriousness of the situation, but without tipping into unnecessary panic.
Right. Got to walk that tightrope. So we've got the Brisbane Times, which was the local paper, and then the Australian, the national one. Just at first glance, what jumps out at you about how they covered the cyclones?
Well, one thing is just the sheer volume of articles that the Brisbane Times was putting out. They were publishing something like 7 or 8 articles every single day on the cyclones,
Oh,
compared to the Australian, who were only doing maybe 3 a day.
okay.
But as we all know, more content doesn't always mean better information, does it?
Definitely not. It's about quality, not quantity.
Yeah.
Which is a perfect segue to the research we're looking
Yeah.
at. They use this model called the Extended Parallel Processing Model,
Sure.
or EPPM.
Catchy, right.
Very catchy. Don't worry, we're not going to get bogged down in jargon. But basically, it looks at whether the information people get during a crisis, any kind of crisis, really actually helps them take action, protect themselves, or if it just kind of sends them into this spiral of fear.
Yeah, it's about understanding how we process risk
Yeah,
and what kind of messaging helps people respond effectively instead of just, freaking out.
exactly. And the study focused on two key things: threat and efficacy. Threat seems pretty straightforward. How bad is the cyclone going to be? But let's talk about efficacy for a sec. What does that mean in this context?
So efficacy is all about whether you, as the person getting this news, feel like you can actually do something to stay safe. It's that, okay, now what factor. Giving people clear instructions, obviously. But even more importantly, explaining why those actions are important, what the positive outcome of actually doing them will be.
Okay, so not just board up your windows, but board up your windows because it can prevent shattering and protect you from flying debris.
Exactly. Give the why behind the what.
I like that.
And this is where things get really interesting with the newspapers. The study found that both of them did a pretty good job of communicating the threat. Like, these cyclones were serious business. They got that across. However,
Here comes the but.
here comes the but.
They both kind of dropped the ball when it came to that efficacy part.
They told people, prepare, evacuate, all the right things. But they didn't always do a great job explaining why those actions were so crucial or how to actually do them effectively to have a better chance of a good outcome.
Interesting. So let's say you're reading one of these articles, the cyclone's on its way. What's one concrete example of something these newspapers could have done better?
Well, let's take the example of electricity and mobile phone coverage.
Hmm.
Absolutely crucial thing to be thinking about during a cyclone.
For sure.
Now, the newspapers did mention it, but they could have gone so much deeper. Like, imagine if they'd said straight up, look, there's a very real chance you're going to lose power and cell service. So here are 3 things you can do right now to be ready.
Okay, see, now you've got me hooked. I need those 3 things. Give me those practical steps.
All right, so number 1, charge all your devices, and I mean everything. Phones, laptops, portable chargers, anything that can hold a charge.
Smart.
Number 2,
Yeah.
go dig out those battery-powered radios and flashlights.
Oh, yeah.
Might seem kind of old school,
Definitely.
but when the power's out, they are lifesavers, trust me.
Absolutely.
And then number 3, it's a simple one, but jot down important phone numbers. Because you never know. You might need to get in touch with someone,
Yeah.
but you can't get into your phone's contact list.
Those are such good tips. So simple, but I feel like in the heat of the moment, I might forget to actually do those things.
It's easy to overlook the basics.
You're totally reminding me, like, I need to dig out our family's emergency kit and make sure everything's up to date, too.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of thing these newspapers could have been prompting their readers to do. Like, give them those concrete, actionable steps to take.
Right.
Or even take something like, evacuation instructions.
Yeah.
The papers did tell people where to go.
Hmm.
But they could have made it even more effective.
How so?
By making it super tailored, Imagine if they'd highlighted the nearest evacuation center to you, the person reading, like based on where you're most likely to be reading that paper.
Oh, interesting. So really making it feel personal and relevant to them.
Exactly. Because in a crisis, you need to be able to act on information, not just like taking a bunch of facts and figures.
Right.
You need to know, what do I do and how do I do it to stay safe?
Yeah, it's like the difference between like reading a map and having someone just tell you, turn left at the big oak tree. That's how you'll know you're going the right way.
Yes. Perfect analogy.
Yeah.
It's about giving people those landmarks, those clear, specific instructions that help them navigate a stressful situation.
For sure. Okay, so for our listener who's maybe like feeling a little overwhelmed every time they see disaster news pop up.
Which is all of us, let's be honest.
Right. What's the main takeaway here? When they're scrolling through all that news during a natural disaster, what should they be really paying attention to?
I'd say just keep this question in the back of your mind. Am I getting the whole picture here? It's not enough to just know that a storm is coming, right?
Right.
You need to know, what specific actions should I be taking? How do I actually do them? And why do those actions really increase my chances of staying safe?
Look for that efficacy element like we were talking about.
Yeah.
Don't just get stuck in the threat and the scary headlines.
100%. And honestly, if you're not getting those concrete takeaways, don't be afraid to go seek them out. Go straight to the official sources. Check emergency services websites, government alerts. Those usually have super detailed info and instructions.
Yes. Because at the end of the day, knowledge is power, right? And in a natural disaster, it can literally be the difference between staying safe or not.
Absolutely.
And it's not just about the information itself, is it? It's also about how it's presented.
You're spot on. The tone, the language, the whole framing of it, that all makes a difference.
So it's not just, hey, hurricane's coming, be terrified. It's hurricane's coming, here's what you can do to get ready, and here's why those preparations actually matter.
Exactly. Hit the nail on the head. Clear, consult language, no jargon, and focusing on solutions.
Right. And maybe even like highlighting stories of, resilience, community support, not just focusing on all the devastation.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Showcasing how people are coming together to help each other, how communities are bouncing back. That can be so powerful.
Because it reminds you that, okay, even when something really scary is happening, there's still hope. There are still things we can do. It's not like we're just totally powerless.
Exactly. And that's what real resilience is all about, right? Not just knowing the facts, but actually believing that, we can get through this.
Yeah.
As individuals, as communities.
Totally. Love that. Okay, so to wrap things up for our deep divers today, it's about empowering people, not just alarming them.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So next time you find yourself facing down a natural disaster or, even just hearing about one on the news, remember, information is your friend. And a lot of times those really crucial details, the ones that help you take action, they're not always going to be right there in the sensational headlines.
Yeah.
So look for those nuggets of efficacy like we were talking about. They could make all the difference. Stay curious, deep divers.